Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning into the Cloud.fm podcast. And today we are doing the KubeCon recap with Taylor Dole is there, one of the best friend from the CNCF. Thank you, Taylor, for joining in. And absolutely excited to see you on the keynote of the KubeCon Valencia. So thanks to being on the show. So first introduce yourself to my audience and then try to introduce what you learned from the KubeCon Valencia.
Yeah, howdy, everybody. So happy. I feel like I've never left the orange field, as you can see behind me. It's you might notice part of my head disappearing there because my heart is still in Valencia. It was wonderful to meet so many of you. So I'm my name's Taylor Dolezal. I'm the head of ecosystem for the CNCF, and that means I get to work with end users just like you on the projects that make up the CNCF and that make up the cloud native ecosystem. It's my goal to work with you to kind of eliminate those sharp corners, those dark corners, sharp edges, and really promote cloud native everywhere, making it ubiquitous. I try to gather best practices and share that out so teams can be successful. And I'm really not trying to sell you anything, just trying to sell you on the best way to do something and trying to figure that out together. That's my job, is finding out more ways that we get to work together. So I get to have fun all day. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. So I think there is so many I've created the show note for the people on the KubeCon side as well. But one of the best thing that I see, I think this is your first KubeCon keynote session, and I'm really excited to be seeing you on the stage. And I think you partly because of we have been teaming up with so many webinars on the HashiCorp side, and then I see you joining the CNCF. That's make me so happy. Like I am now more close to the CNCF people, and it's really easily approachable for me to talk about these kind of things. So tell us about your KubeCon experience. That is mandatory for everyone because I think the most of the people this is actually their dream of doing the KubeCon and get a keynote there.
Yeah. So I had a lot of fun. I was really happy getting to work with Priyanka and the whole team really on getting to speak in front of everybody. I think I'm curious to see how many people we had in the crowd at that point in time and on the live stream. But it was nice because you had the big lights on you, so you couldn't really make out the entirety of the crowd. But it was fun to see everybody. I got to kind of talk about my history and all the things that I got to do. And get to hear from so many people using Kubernetes and other cloud native projects, working with the program co-chairs. All three of them were just absolutely fantastic to get to work with. Jasmine, Megan, and Ricardo was just fantastic to get a deeper sense of all the ways in which they are running their workloads, staying safe, et cetera, et cetera. I did try to make as many puns as I possibly could in that keynote too. I did let some people down. They expected more. I think that my friend Swarna said that it was only like 2 puns per slide. Maybe we could pick that up a little bit next time. So I'll see what we can do for Detroit. Also need to pick a fun walk-on song. So, but it was lots of fun getting to work with everybody on that keynote, and fun to see everybody in person. I think that was the biggest takeaway, was just the hallway track. Being able to interact with people and see all those fun conversations happen around all these different technologies. We've been locked inside for so long, and so it's been nice to get that face-to-face interaction with everybody. And we did get to extend the CFPs for KubeCon. If you're hearing this now or in the future, unfortunately, they're due today at the end of the day on June 3rd. But keep an eye out for future engagements if you're still looking for something on that front. There's still KubeCon EU for next year. Otherwise, if you have a CFP, please submit that today if you're listening to this on June 3rd. We were able to extend that out because we were just getting so many good ideas from all those conversations that were happening, and people wanted that time to be able to submit new ideas and other things on that front.
Absolutely. And I think the best news is today, like the KubeCon CNCF KubeCon 2022 CNCF playlist is out. Now you get the ideas what the past talks are available. You get the ideas from there and tell us about the what are you excited for. So one of the thing I'm really excited about this year is that I'm actually able to make it to the CNCF KubeCon playlist. I have a lightning talk, and I am able to do it. I'm in the CNCF, and I really like about this chapter when creating the Cloud Native Islamabad community. So I love to talk about people. Why I'm doing this, because people asking me is taking so much time from yours. Like you're spending extra hours not sitting with your friends and family, and you're doing the community stuff. What do you get from it? But giving a KubeCon speech is a big difference for me. Like I'm able to make it happen because of the CNCF folks. They are really kind enough people to work with these kind of stuff. And also, I see during the KubeCon, I see Taylor on the Cube show as well. Prior to the KubeCon, or you can watch the recording here as well. How the KubeCon even gets started and how the things are happening on that kind of front. It's a wonderful talking point for everyone on the Cube for listening to us. So I see a lot of the Taylor on this keynote as well. And one of the really thing I like about is Taylor being on the KubeCon Valencia keynote. That is actually the moment for me, wonderful moment for me, because I really like about your enthusiasm and being commitment to the cloud native community. So that's really one of the best moments for me to see you at the KubeCon keynote stage as well. So and also I see there are some of the talks that I really like about it is from the supply chain security from the Purico. If he is watching us today or not, he's really rocking. They say, I think I don't see him before in the KubeCon, but Taylor I really like about his talk on the supply chain security, and he's a wonderful person from the chain guard team as well. I have you able to meet him on the Valencia side as well, because he's a very wonderful person, and he's actually the next speaker in my podcast for the next Thursday.
I'm so excited. I've got to tune in. Yeah, we go way back. We're release family, working in SIG release together on so many things. I was so excited to see him go to Chain Guard, and I keep hearing things about salsa compliance and things like that. I know it's not about chips and it's about security. I know we have a chip shortage, but in my cabinet, I've got quite a bit of tortilla chips. I don't know what everybody's talking about. Um, but no, it's
Yes.
absolutely fantastic. I was really excited to get to meet so many people. And in like you said, Sam, even to see you in the lightning talks, I was like, look at that. I got to MC for that. I got pulled in later on for that duty, and just was really fun to see you. I see your face on the screen and just kind of make all those connections. Like you said, it's a small group working here in cloud, and so it's so nice to see everybody changing roles and contexts and be like, I get to work with you in this context. I was so bummed I didn't get to meet up with Chris Short. I did get to see Duffy. I felt so bad because he ended up getting sick near the end of the conference and had to stay in Valencia a little bit longer. Duffy, if you're ever watching, I do hope that you got some more paella. But happy to see that he was able to go home too. But really loved getting to interact and engage with these people.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think these are the two one of the awesome people. So I've tweeted that, like, if you're, I've tweeted this. I think the one day before, if you're going to leave Valencia, I think you have to meet these awesome people as well, because they are being a very part of this community for a very long time. I have missed them very opportunity of meeting, but I hope so I can meet them in person in the KubeCon. That's right. So also the best news for me, like my team is I'm working with a developer advocate at the Van Cloud, and they have a very good numbers at the Van Cloud, at the IBM booth, with the collaborating partners with the IBM. So I see a very good audience during the KubeCon side. And we are working with a multi-cloud migration, multi-cloud Kubernetes, and see our as a startup, you get a lot of attraction. I think that's the best feeling I get from it. Even from seeing the home that the people coming joining in your booth, your company you work with, make you really excited about and keep you motivated. Like you doing the good stuff, keep on doing this kind of stuff for the future as well. So I really like about two things. Like one, I'm able to get into the KubeCon Lightning Talk, and one of the other thing that Van Cloud is the startup sponsor of the KubeCon gets the opportunity to have so many people connection with. So now we let it go to the other side, the KubeCon blog side. Like now we see the Flux KubeCon wrap up. And tell for people who are really new to the Flux, tell us about what the Flux is, and have you met the Stefan Pordon? because he is one of the awesome people of the Flux community.
Yes, yes. So Flux is a tool to enable GitOps within your organization. It's been I think that both I've listened to a lot of really interesting podcasts recently around Flux, around Argo, and just kind of the different ways in which teams use both of those projects. Flux, I've seen, has a little bit more of an affinity with people that work in an infrastructure space, whereas Argo might be a little bit more friendly for people who have more of a developer-centric kind of workflow. So that's one of the things I love about the CNCF is that we tried to make it an inviting environment for all projects. We're not kingmakers, so to speak. We don't pick a project and say, like, this is the one. Sometimes that might make it easier, but we want to be inclusive and give a space for all of these projects to really see which ones work well. And in some cases, it's not a one size fits all. Many different contexts exist. That's why in technology, if you're working for it, for a few months, you might hear, well, it depends. And that's very much the case here. But I did get to meet Stefan. I did stop by the Flux booth and got to see my one friend, Pinky, who works over at Weaveworks. So shout out to Pinky. It was really great to meet up with a lot of the Flux folks and kind of talk about what's upcoming, what's next for them. I know they're taking a look at graduation and trying to further the project in that space, to which I wish them the best of luck. It's exciting to see projects move through those different phases of maturity. I know that GitOps Days is coming up. I'll be speaking at that as well and kind of talking about GitOps in general. So no shortage of stopping. Everything's in iteration. All those changes are going to production, both in real life and within the digital space. So always a fun place to be.
Absolutely. I think that's a part of the community side. I think everybody watching or listening to us, I think the GitOps Day, another good event is coming up, because the speaker I see is Taylor Dolezal, Anais Urchel, and Victor Farsik, May Lodge, Rosemary Wang, and Jason Morgan. So I met all of the people instead May and Rosemary. I haven't met him before. But that's a great speaker lineup. Everybody listening or watching to us, I encourage you to join in for the June 8 and June 9. That's going to be a very good learning session for everyone. And another thing that I see during the KubeCon, that the announcing of the software factory reference architecture paper. So Taylor, have you heard about what those are? Because I think these are the newest news when I see during the KubeCon side.
Yeah, this is one I have yet to read this actually. I heard a lot about it and a whole bunch of people as I walked past and got into conversations, they were bringing this up. I was really bummed. I got to participate as one of the program committee members for WASM Day, and so WebAssembly. And so that was kind of my main focus for the co-located events. But I was really curious on all things in the security side. So tons of videos I need to catch up on. And I do need to read up on this paper. I've heard great things about it. But I think previously one of the previous assets generated by this group was around the end of 2021. So kind of nice to see something else that we were able to source and take a look at. I've got a couple friends in some ethical hacking contexts, and they work in those roles. So they're also very excited on this front as well, just figuring out what the best practices are and ways in which to lead their teams.
Yes, absolutely. Security is a very hot topic right now. Like I see in the last KubeCon NA, we see the supply chain security gone. And after that, everything is happening in that umbrella. Because Taylor, as we all know, like security is quite a complicated topic when you talk about containers, Kubernetes, and I see people are now jumping in, like the papers coming up and the reference architecture. These are all here for help people to make sure they are using the cloud native security as they should be, and that's kind of a material for them to know, like this is a community best practices you had, and we have written down some of the reference architecture or some of the things that we learned from the community, and we tell you need to ensure these kind of practices in your organization. And I think having these reference architectures and people, and another good cornerstone, like CNCF is not just taking about one thing, like not just with the container, it's checking about all the ecosystem. So now they know that the ecosystem, the security is really important, and now they try to jump into it. Like so many things are happening in that umbrella, like so many people are participating in it. So I think that's another great addition in the CNCF community by having those blogs out, having those reference architectures out. So that's a great news for everyone who are watching to us. And another thing that I notice is that is a, Taylor, to be honest, my the topic of my choice, because when you look at the CNCF landscape, there are so many tiles, so many projects, so many open source communities. Which one do we use for our need? It's a topic of its own. And that's where I think the cloud native maturity model joins in. And now it's 2.0 is coming up. So as you've been a part of the CNCF and you talking to the customers, and they ask you, I think, these kind of question. I have this kind of infrastructure in place. Do you suggest? Do we use Kyverno over Opera? Do we use our Flux over Argo CD? Do we use Istio over Linkerd? I think these are questioning came up to you, those people who are working in the CNCF. And first try to elaborate, like for the people who haven't heard about the maturity model, and tell us about what's new in the 2.0.
So this was one thing that I really liked. So this is coming from the Cartographos working group, and they just really have been doing some amazing work in terms of taking a look at the ecosystem and deriving best practices with many, with many groups, with many people over many contexts. And what we've seen is kind of talking more generally, not to just this document, but what we've seen is that teams, the CNCF doesn't want to pick the winners of the group. We want to enable success for all teams and just kind of get a sense of all the possibilities, because our goal is making cloud native ubiquitous. So when it comes to teams adopting these different methodologies and finding out the best ways in which they work, we found that it makes sense for teams to implement interfaces. So making sure that, what do we want to cover? Is logging important to us? Do we need this auditability, this traceability? What things make sense for us to adopt or kind of have as the main focus? And then, but not to eliminate other possibilities. So say if you're using, Postgres as your database or MySQL, you develop an expertise by using that framework, that tool, and setting that up within your system. But if there's a need for a NoSQL database or a document store like MongoDB, for instance, we don't want to eliminate that. We need to say, okay, here's our interface. Here are the things that we do want to capture and still work with. But, we don't want to slow you down. It sounds like you might have a use case with MongoDB. We can't really support that, but we enable you to go and figure out what the best practices are there and help bring that back to our teams and then make this all better, because we should be learning new things. Something shouldn't be homogenous and kind of static forever. We don't grow that way. We don't test our theories that way. If we kind of stay stuck in the same perspective. So that's what I really like about this maturity model, is figuring out, what makes production boring, what makes us mature in that way, and how to validate that, but not lose sight of what's in the future and other ways that we can test our conclusions, test our assumptions, hypotheses, etc. Just always, it's really exciting because, right, you can't track main and pull everything in all of the time. It doesn't make sense. You have to have some waiting period or some validation period to be able to make sure that you are taking the right step forward. It's fun to be tracking at main and like seeing all the new things that are coming down. But in most cases, it doesn't make sense. And we have to have that certainty for most businesses to work on, unless it's your job to kind of, live dangerously, pull from main.
I think during the conversation, you talk about like the cartographer working group. Like it's a main working group that the cartographer project is residing from the VMware folks.
Absolutely. I've gotten the chance to talk with several people from that group as well. I am curious to kind of hear what I know that they're also taking a look at giving some good talks in Detroit potentially as well. So I'm very excited to hear more from this group and personally just get involved and just kind of hear some of the things that they're working on. I got to work on a CTO summit in this KubeCon. We're going to be doing it again for Detroit. And so we were kind of talking in somewhat related fashions on multi-cloud. I'm going to be working with the CNCF and the Linux Foundation Research Group to publish out a paper in the coming weeks about what we learned too. So I promise y'all, there's no shortage of really great things and insights and artifacts you can actually take and learn from. And as time goes on, we can take a look and see how things have changed as well.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think everybody will, well, because people are trying to jump in and ask question about what are the newest area where we can influence more. And I think the maturity model is that area is very hot right now, and we need a lot more work in it. So I think that's a great area to start working on it. Everybody who's listening to us today. So I'm really interested in how do I try to do my things out. And during another good news, like I think the new training course is appearing on the is explores ethics in open source development. So that is I think a great news, because open source is all about ethics and being try to work with each other, be a friendly environment for everyone. So tell us about Taylor, how ethics is really important and how people try to develop those, and having a course in place, how this helps people in joining the open source communities.
Yeah, so this was I do want to dig in with the group and kind of like hear more about the motivations, and I can assume I know some of them, but it's never good it's never good to assume. That's why we have metrics and observability. But it's great to see courses like this come out, because I feel like they're, just my bias, my perspective. I haven't seen many things cover this. When you start to hear about companies like Theranos and the story, seeing that data was faked to be able to go and give those presentations. When you hear about, the stories around emissions and software written to kind of cheat out, everything that happened there, a couple of years back. I feel like when you take a look at your job as a software engineer or somebody that works in infrastructure, what you work on can be an extension of your worldview. So it really is an opportunity to, we say at the CNCF, with the CNCF Code of Conduct, please be excellent to one another. That's the simplified, paraphrased intent. It's okay to, but that doesn't mean it's bad to share your opinion or to share your perspective, right? If you feel a certain way, or you're like, I don't think this is going to work, or I feel differently, let's talk about it. It gets away from being disrespectful or trying to work around the system or something in that capacity. So when it comes to ethics and open source, it's another form of being excellent to one another. It's a codified way of being excellent to one another, and making sure that what the end result is working with everybody. There's clear communication. The expectations have been set. And so I'm really excited to see this course come out, because again, I just really haven't seen anything focus on it. And as we start to see more good things happen, there are some bad things that happen within the open source ecosystem, supply chain attacks, things like that. We do need something to look to understand what are good ethics, what are some good examples, and then kind of how can we take from that. One thing that I've learned more in working with teams is seeing that it is hard to get started at some points in time, especially with security, and then sometimes ethics. You might have an idea of where you want to go or what you want to do, but it's hard to start turning that wheel within your team or your organization. And it makes it much easier when you have a jumping off point or an example to copy and learn from. And so that, again, is kind of the intent behind this course. But I do want to talk with that team and kind of find about the history. Is like, was it these historical events that happened that caused this? I always like a good story. I used to work at Disney, so I really value a good story whenever somebody has one.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. I think that's a thing that like during the conversation talk about, like having a boilerplate, having a template to work with, like being like professional, we know and we learn from the community how we can able to talk with each other. But having a newer person from the, let's say, for the newer geography, and they see don't many people from that area, how do we able to kickstart my journey, and what are the things I don't able to talk in public? So I think having this in place help them understand those hurdles, understand the pain points, understand like what are the things I can talk about in public, how the things are happening, how to be collaborative with one another, and how to be engaging with one another. So I think having a this course in mind, I think help like feel scares out from the people's mind, like how to be able to talk to them. Like when I first joined the CNCF community, I know like there are some metrics because people are having the different cultures, different backgrounds, how to be able to talk with each other. Having these kind of materials coming in, and I hope in the future people we have some kind of communication skills courses coming out in the CNCF. Like how do you able to talk with one another? How you able to talk on the GitHub? How do you able to talk on the Slack channel? How you talk to people, like if you're having a session, conducting a section, how do you able to try to communicate with each other? So I think this is a great like a lot of the things happening in the CNCF from not the people that are living in the CNCF doing the job, but from the elsewhere. That is a great part of the community. The people join in and see the things that they can help with the community. They try to join. They try to find the places where they can contribute most. And also, Taylor, I see there is not a KubeCon started or ended before having a a new certification came up, and that's a new one, and that's I'm taking an eye on because one of the great projects I really like about is Prometheus is one of the best project for me because I like observability in my open source in my every project, like what is happening under the hood, how the container utilize the CPU, RAM, and having this clear scores and certification in mind. I think now the organization takes an eye out that their people they can start learning about it. It's not a prerequisite anymore; it's a mandatory subject. So we have people to train on these kind of activities.
Yeah, so I was really excited to see this too. Granted, I got to hear a little bit of the chatter before the announcement, but I think that it's really great to have these certifications for the graduated projects within the CNCF. You know, it makes it so much better when you understand how to use the tool and how to create these workflows. And you know, like you said, I'm a huge fan of observability as well. Getting a sense of your world and being able to quantify it is just so much more helpful to be able to speak with teams and then to drive that change. So I'm really excited about future courses as well within this space, but definitely need to study up and take a look at the Prometheus exam myself too. I'd love to get that badge. I think that came out quite well too.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's a requirement right now because everybody try to have the observability in the mind because we are talking about four things like container, code, cloud, and clusters. Previously, just talking about the code in itself. We haven't talking about the cloud part of it. It's somebody else's job. But now the YAML in place, having everything in their mind. So we have observability in every layer, in the code, in the container, in the cloud, in the cluster. So I think the Prometheus, how it solves the problem, I think it's deserving the certification of its own. And I think that's another part of contribution place. Like if somebody know the Prometheus or working on the Prometheus, they can try to jump in and create some courses, some YouTube material videos, or try to create a GitHub repositories for some of the things that you can learn by Prometheus. So I think that's a way you should go if you try to contribute on that part as well. And also, Taylor, I see some of the wonderful like KubeCon recaps, and one of them from the Rich War or the Loft SH team. Rich Burrows always try to wrap up the sessions wonderfully well. So I encourage you to join and see some of his tweets, some of his announcement. And it's been a wonderful session for everyone. And I think we should try to talk about Cilium on this show. Like, I have you met some of the Cilium folks as well because they are doing some of the awesome job in the networking side.
Yeah. So I have to find it. I have it somewhere here on my machine, but I went to one of the. I knew about Cilium very early on. I've been friends with the founders and with Duffy, with Liz Rice, with Bill who left the CNCF to go and work with them. There's so many wonderful people there. So my friend Swarna, so many fantastic people working on that product. There was a meetup that I went to. I think it was around, it might have been like Thanksgiving time, so November here in the States. I went to a session and saw Cilium for the first time, and it was really cool, a really cool product way back then, like 2018, 2019. And I think sitting behind me, I didn't realize was Paige Bailey, who's just an absolute phenom in the AI and ML space. And people are like, "Oh my gosh, we'd love to see you present." There are like so many cloud native superstars, very, very early on, sitting in kind of like at this meetup that was in West Hollywood. And it was so cool to kind of, I always look back to that. I'm like, it's wild to see when something's good, just kind of like see it take off over time, and then to be able to recall and look back at all of those experiences and see all those interactions again. But I think the demo that they gave too is a really good one. And they had like X-Wings coming in from Star Wars and attacking the Death Star and making sure that different routes didn't load. So it was really interesting. It was the first time I had ever heard of eBPF. And it's been, so yeah, Cilium has a special place in my heart from just personal experience back when I worked at Disney, and then getting to work with them a little bit at HashiCorp on some demos and just taking a look at things on that front.
Yes, absolutely. And that Cilium has two wonderful parts. Like in its like technology is a wonderful technology in itself, and some wonderful person from the community are part of that team. So that's I really like about it. That in the Liz Rice, Thomas, the founder, and also the Duffy Colley and the Bill. These are all known people all about it, and they're really wonderful people. So I think Cilium is now if you have to know more about eBPF networking, I think you should be taking your eye out on the Cilium project as well.
you should be checking it out. I got it. I heard that.
Yes, absolutely. And you should read this wonderful, I think, the blog come out, because it's encapsulated everything from the tweets and replays. And Rich is a wonderful person, and he has had Rich Burrows. I think he has his own podcast with the name of the Kubernetes Scudder.
It's so good. I was happy to meet Rich early on too. I met him when he was working at Gremlin, and just yeah, it's Rich. Absolutely appreciate you. It's been so great to see recaps on this front. I've even like recaps he did of Chaos Conf and like all of these other things. Just always really good at summing things up. And yes, really appreciated the shout out at the end too. I laughed when I read that. He also impressed me with his fashion sense. So I liked it. I love that jacket. That was really fun. So it's fun to wear.
Yes, absolutely. And before we let the show close, this is the last day for the KubeCon CFP. I think today is going to be closes on. And before we let you go, tell us some of the area that you think people can take an eye out and should submit a topic on its own. And what do you think? What is the most exciting? What are the most things that you think having a CFP in place and that should be accepted from the CFP folks? So share your opinions.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to CFPs, if it's something that you do feel is daunting or scary, or if you want some guidance on that, I'm always happy to chat with you. Unfortunately, I don't. It is cutting it a little close today. Otherwise, I'd love to. Always want to talk about CFPs with you. But yeah, unless you have an idea and it's like just nearing the bend in terms of completion, it's a very tight timeline to be able to get that in today. There are just just a few more hours ultimately. But always happy to chat about that and kind of show you what will be successful. In terms of just some overall general advice, I would recommend making sure to just be in a comfy place, be able to sit with your thoughts and kind of read through, be able to, both write and express the idea of the thing that you're trying to communicate for your talk, as well as be able to speak it out loud. Sometimes just even doing that is really helpful in kind of hearing your idea out loud. Sometimes it might be too verbose. Sometimes it might need different words or to be elongated a little bit. That's something that's really helpful. What I've seen is that typically when you're able to, the technology is important, but sometimes it's easy to get lost in that and in the description. What sells a better story, what tells and sells the story a little bit better, is being able to talk through the workflow itself. If I have an iPhone and I use it as a paperweight, That's not really how it was intended to be used, right? It's not as useful as making calls, using apps, and just all these other things. So being able to talk about how you use the thing is just as important as the thing itself in many cases. So that's definitely a good piece of advice to take with you, and that I've seen make for successful CFPs. As an end user, so as someone who doesn't sell cloud native technologies or work at a company like that, those are some of the stories that are most requested. So because there isn't this onus to sell the thing, it's an onus to use it and use it well. That's really what the community wants to hear. So if you do have a good story, either from personal context or at your organization, truly, even if you are selling cloud native things, it's hearing that use case and that just kind of that context of I'm using this and trying to figure out the most efficient and the best way to be able to utilize this workflow or utilize this this tool is always a really good thing to focus in on. And then just making sure that you have everything spelled correctly. I know that the people that do go through and review all of these are that some have to review hundreds that they've signed on to do. So there's you're working with people from the community. It's not the CNCF at the end of the day picking these things. We've delegated that to people that have worked within the community, within the space. They'll pick a track to kind of moderate and to look through. So, and there are, my goodness, I think that just the track that I was in, I think that there were over like 1,000 or 1,200 submissions just for that track. A couple of KubeCons ago, I was blown away. I was, y'all have some incredible ideas. So do not feel bad if you don't get in either. You have to choose. It's a lot of really good talk submissions, and it's difficult to choose. 3%, even 10% of that is very difficult to narrow down. So don't feel bad. There are more people that get rejected than get accepted on that front. There are a couple other venues to speak to on that front. We are always looking for blog posts as well. So don't feel like this, this is your one shot. There are many other ways in which to get that message out. And I'm always happy to work with you too. If you have a case study, if you have a story you want to tell, if you have a demo that you want to highlight, always happy to work with you on those fronts too, because it's my belief those stories should be told. We should figure out the best ways to work from each other. It's difficult to have the weight of the world on your shoulders and feel like you have to be the one to figure that out, because that's not true. We work best as a community. We work best together. And as we're able to share that and feel comfortable about doing that, where it's okay. I understand there are some legalities and other things that come into play. So you do not ignore those, but let's talk, let's tell these stories and figure out the best ways to run our workloads together.
Absolutely. I also encourage it. Like I think right now it's a wonderful ladder you can find out. If your talk is not even submitted to is not accepted for the KubeCon, you have a local user group like KCD Chennai. KCD Chennai is happening as of today. And I'm also running the KCD Pakistan. We're doing the same thing, like KubeCon locally in my area. So these are the events happening up. And if you submit the talk today, you try to join these events as well and try to speak at those events. And the CNCF folks see you that you are now taking more engagement into the community. And then they realize that this is a person, if not submit, has opportunity to talk to the KubeCon, but there's some other place where you can influence more in the community side of things. So I think you should submit a topic, whatever you have in mind, and not think about why I'm not accepted there. There is I think there's a very good competition going on. People have so many ideas coming in, and for the CNCF, there is a really difficult job for them, which one to select and which one to reject, because often at times they have so many good ideas in it. But at the end of the day, we have a capacity to work with. Otherwise, the KubeCon is never going to be ended. Everybody's come on and speak at. And we have a KubeCon that having left for the 100 days, but we weren't able to make it. We have a 4-day or 5-day show, and that you take to consideration on. But these guys are doing a wonderful job because they selected the CFP and they're taking the people eyes on who are contributing most, who are engaging most. So I think that you should submit the CFP, whatever you have in mind, and then try to join the local user group where you can influence more, because that's not rejecting the CFP, because they are looking for the speakers, not for the rejection part of it. So they can get you the opportunity to talk about it, and you can get the idea. I think if you're doing this consistently, you're able to make it to the KubeCon. That's my experience. If you do it consistent, if you're doing it in a very part basis, that's make it difficult because we don't know you and we take a shy eye. Don't know who is this person for. But if you know you, like you are doing consistent stuff, talking to the community, contribution to the GitHub repositories, helping people, building local user groups. Go to the KubeCon, talk to the CNCF people, having your presence into the CNCF and the Kubernetes Slack channel. That's make a part of the community, and having you a part of the community gets you the most exposure, gets you the most feeling out of it. So I think I encourage everyone to at least submit a CFP for, and then actively look at where the areas you can talk about it before the KubeCon that right. So people know that you are talking about it, and you get your hand, the dream come true of talking to KubeCon will do come true. So wonderful talking to you, Taylor. It's been always enjoy you. And before I let you go, so we have two podcasts coming up. That is one from our multi. That in the next week I'm talking with our own company CEO Faz Khan, and he's talking about how they are dealing a solution of VPC Plus and disaster recovery as a service for the cloud native, multi-cloud native users who having EKS or GK cluster or GK3 cluster installed on it. And we try to show you how you're able to make those cluster resilient and has discoverable and have a disaster recovery in place. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. I will let you know when it's going to happen. And the next week is absolutely a great show for me because Perico is going to be joining me on the supply chain security, and we have a topic about how to start learning supply chain security from today. So he's been a wonderful guest from the Chain God. I hope you enjoy the conversation with him because his KubeCon talk is wonderful. So these are the two things we're talking about. So before I let you go, Taylor, tell us about what are you currently focusing on and what your plan before the KubeCon that I know you are a busy person in the CNCF right now.
Yeah, so really I've got my eyes on that CTO summit and kind of sourcing all that information. So that also being about multi-cloud. So I'm really excited to kind of share some of the things that we talk to large companies about. And then next up, really just focused on helping to grow our communities. Like you had said, Siam, it makes sense to, if you have an idea and want to share it, it doesn't have to be at KubeCon. It can be at a meetup. It can be these other contexts. And there have been many people that I talk to, and they keep asking the question, oh, the CNCF is not a ginormous 1,000-person team. It's really 50 people. So it's a very, very efficient team that's able to work, that isn't, a giant corporation size. And we keep getting asked, how do you make it scale? How do you make it scale? And it's not the fact that we do directly. It's the fact that we're able to work with people like you, Siam, and it's people that are passionate, people that want to share these messages. And I'd say take that opportunity. I completely agree with you. If you're on the fence about it and if you need a little friendly push, I'm happy to do that, because you should be talking about that. If you're questioning it and wondering about it, give it a shot. See if it's a good fit. See if it's something that you like. Progress doesn't always feel comfortable. Some of the best progress feels a little bit uncomfortable, like your lightning talk too. I really laughed about the part of like, do I want to spend time with friends? Are they going to isolate me? Like, how do I dice up my time? It's so true. And so definitely want to give you that friendly little push into doing something that's fun, especially if you're wondering about that. I've also got the CNCF radar on my radar to get revamped and make a little bit more statistically sound in terms of showing the workflows that everybody's working on. So just a lot of community highlights, honestly, and getting to talk with a whole bunch of people. So no shortage of fun things to do in the near future for me. And if there are any things that you want to see working better, or if you feel like there needs to be a more of a spotlight on a specific thing, practice, WebAssembly, a new thing that's coming up over here, please let me know. I'd love to work with you on that and get that highlight, get that spotlight to where it needs to be.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And Taylor is one of easily approachable person for you. Every time we talk to them, like I want to have a show with you, I want to have a webinar with you. He just said, let's just join in, and it's easily approachable for you. And if you want to have join the Taylor has a wonderful, can share some wonderful insight with you. So I encourage you. So because we had CNCF like Taylor, that's easily approachable for us. We can share them feedback easily, and they try to work on those feedback. That's more important, because it hurts for the community. Like we need to make ourselves more new version of ourselves, not to be stay as they should be. So I think if we should talk to this person. I really enjoy talking with them every time I talk to them. So I think there is so much in the plans. You can try to find where the areas you can contribute most, and try to spend your time, I think, with the CNCF Kubernetes Slack channel. And if you're really new beginner to it, and if you try to submit a talk, just think about it. Like, I try to encourage myself that I can learn anything, but I can be remembered for what I have shared, because that's a part of it. Like, you shared something, and it makes something like having a 360 turn. Like, if he is doing this kind of stuff, why not I trying to put this effort on and make a same progress that this person made it. So I think when you share some of the things, you're changing the mind of the community, changing the mind of the people. And that's, I think, a contribution of in itself. Like, when I started my career, I'm an Angular developer, but I tried to switch from the DevOps side because of the people like Taylor and other in the community. They're talking about these technologies every day, helping people learn by sharing their post, by sharing their Twitter account. Like, I learned this day, and when I see your post and other people's post, I see these are the new technologies, these are the new terms that popping up, and I want to learn these new technologies. I want to be make more part of it. So I think I encourage everyone to submit a CFP for the KubeCon, that right, and taking the local events more interestingly. Like, if you want to talk the KCD Pakistan, where CFP are closed, but I still find to give you a slot where you can share your ideas. And I want to ensure like you are a part of our YouTube KCD Pakistan playlist. So ping me or ping me, Taylor. We always loves to help you in our any capacity we can. And thank you very much, Taylor, once again for joining the podcast. It's been a wonderful appreciation from my side. You've done a wonderful job. Keep on doing it, and we will meet again, hopefully in person in Detroit. Thank you, everyone, who join us for the podcast. Hope to see you again in the future. Stay safe, stay healthy. Bye bye, everyone.